Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry at the Movies. Today I'm going to talk about a subject that relates to unfinished, uncompleted, unreleased films. And I like this topic because it relates to film history in one way or another. And a film that was unreleased or unfinished, or whatever the reason may be why it was never shown to any sort of audience, it has a lot to do with the era in which it came out in as well, whatever decade it came out in. So, one of the more infamous examples would be Jerry Lewis's film, The Day the Clown Cried. Now, as we all know, Jerry Lewis has had a successful career as a comedian, making films that have had audiences rolling in the aisles. And he had that career for quite a long time, starting out with Dean Martin, of course, and doing his own thing with films like The Nutty Professor, Cinderella, The Patsy, etc. Now, he did attempt to resuscitate his career in the 1980s with troubled productions like Hardly Working and Cracking Up, which did little to rejuvenate his audience. He also didn't just direct some of his own films, but he starred in a couple of films at that time. One in particular is Martin Scorsese's film The King of Comedy, which didn't help because it was the biggest flop of 1983. And despite his futile attempts to make audiences love him again, no film of his has caused more controversy than the unfinished and unreleased The Day the Clown Cried. This was a film that was made back in 1971 through 72, and the original negative remains under lock and key in Sweden due to financial woes. And Jerry apparently has a VHS assist copy of the film, in addition to apparently 3 scenes from the original film negative that he keeps under lock and key in his own office. So why the secrecy, and why can't this be seen, this film, aside from behind-the-scenes footage shown on a biography special? Now, the story of the Clown Cried deals with Helmut-Doork, played by Lewis, and he is a drunk German circus clown who is arrested by the Nazis for making fun of Hitler. Now, Helmut is whisked away to the internment camps and entertains Jewish children. He does his job so well at making children laugh that Helmut is taken away yet again. Now, this time he's kept in Auschwitz and is told to do his job and lead the children to the showers. Entertain the children and basically lead them into the showers when in fact the children are about to be gassed to death. Now, Helmut becomes a Pied Piper and feels such remorse for the kids that he goes in the chamber with them. Now, I first heard about this film through the Medved's crudely funny book, The Golden Turkey Awards, and of course one of those Medveds that you might know is Michael Medved, who is a conservative film critic and talk show host. Anyway, there was a time when this man used to talk about the golden turkeys of the week for sneak previews when it used to be aired with Jeffrey Lyons and Neil Gabler. At any rate, this is when I first heard about the film, and now, for years, The Day the Clown Cried is the one film, aside from The Nutty Professor, that stood out for me. And I'm always fascinated by films that languish and are never completed for one reason or another. Bruce Lee's Game of Death comes to mind, as well as Orson Welles' The Other Side of the Wind, which I've talked about in a past broadcast, and several other projects that Orson Welles was involved with. As a director, he might have the record for more unfinished works than any other. But there is something that gnaws at me about the Day the Clown Cried. Maybe it is the fact that Jerry Lewis attempted something so far removed from his usual shtick, perhaps an attempt to be taken seriously, and not just as a clown. Robin Williams has tried it, and he succeeded with Good Will Hunting, which I think reestablished him as something other than a comic actor. And in fact, Williams even made a similarly themed picture to The Day the Clown Cried called Jacob the Liar, which was in fact a remake of a film that starred Armin Mueller-Stahl. Now, Jim Carrey has also had his share of serious roles in Billy Crystal, but comedians always try to branch out. But from those who have apparently seen this film, The Day the Clown Cried, Harry Shearer claims he saw it and hated it. This Holocaust picture is a disaster, according to those who've seen it, and wrong-headed and possibly morally problematic. After all, it is about a German leading children to the gas chambers, and the ending implies that he goes in the chamber with them, thus committing suicide as an act of self-sacrifice. And I think that ending might be effective in hindsight, but one wonders if it might have made more sense if the clown put himself in the chamber, kept the kids out, and went in there by himself, basically, shut the door, not letting the kids in. Who knows? I mean, perhaps an allegedly dramatic and Holocaust-themed Jerry Lewis flick is not what Lewis fans had in mind. His tomfoolery and wackiness are what made people laugh. Hence his role, believe it or not, as a rich playboy impersonating a Nazi general who wants to kill Hitler in Which Way to the Front, which was the last film Jerry Lewis directed back in 1970, the last completed film anyway, until 1981's Hardly Working. Either way, it's hard to tell because, of course, nobody's seen this film. Some people have. Harry Shearer, as I mentioned, but basically it's a small minority of people. And so we'll never know what this film, what audiences would have thought of it, or the critics. Jerry Lewis has not discussed the film at all, aside from his autobiography, and he had hoped in the early 1980s to finish shooting the film and clear the rights to the material. So it's also a question of rights, which ironically has a lot to do with some of Orson Welles' own efforts. Now, of course, this never came to pass, so one might guess that interest may have accelerated after the success of Roberto Benigni's Life is Beautiful, which was also a controversial film, particularly for some Jewish people. I remember when I saw Life is Beautiful, the first half of the film is in, not Sicily, but Tuscany, I believe. And it's a typical Roberto Benigni type of comical picture, and then the character is sent to the camps along with his son. And I believe it was his son. It's been a while since I've seen it, but that second half, nobody laughed. And there are funny moments, but nobody laughed at that picture. So there's no deal, no show, and the film negative for The Day the Clown Cried is still in Sweden, and may remain the one and only Jerry Lewis movie that nobody will ever see. Somewhere, Jerry Lewis might still be shedding a tear over it. So, the rest of us, well, I'm always fascinated, once again, by unreleased pictures, incomplete films. I don't know why. I guess it's almost like, what might have been type of thing. And, anyway, that's all I got to say on that subject. And this is Jerry the Movies, signing off.